but I simply tried to satisfy my Guru. That's all. Then if you get some money, print books. Therefore I am stressing on this point. Where is book? Where is book? Where is book? So kindly help me. This is my requirement.
Bhagata seva parama siddhi Vimalati karo mula. Bhagata seva parama siddhi Vimalati karo mula. Madhavati ti bhakti janani jatane palana kori. Madhavati ti bhakti janani jatane palana kori. Krishna basati basati boli parama adare bori. Krishna basati basati boli parama adare bori. Gora Maharaj Sabastane Korala Brahmanarange. Gora Maharaj Sabastane Korala Brahmanarange. Sesabastana Heri Bhavami Panai Bhakata Sange. Mridanga Badya Sutinde Mana Abasara Sadajache. Gora Vita Kirtana Suni Anande Hridaya Nache. Jugala Murti Dekhiya Mora Parama Ananda Hoya. Prasada seva karite hoya Sakala prapancha jaya. Jedina grihe bhajana dekhi grihete goloka bhaya. Charana Sidhu Dekhiya Ganga Sukhana Simana Paya. Tulasi Dekhi Guraya Pana Madhava Toshani Jani. Gora Priya Sakha Sevane Jivana Sarthakamani. Bhakti Bino Krishna Bhajane Anukula Payaja. Pati Deva Se Parama Sukhe Svikara Karayeta. Shuddha Bhakata Charanarenu Bhajana Anukula. Bhakata Seva Parama Siddhi Premalati Karamola. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Yasodanandana Vraja Janarandana Yasodanandana Vraja Janarandana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Om Vishupad Paramamsa Parivajakacharya Ashotara Sata Sri Srimati Svangdes Esi Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishupad Paramamsa Parivajakacharya Ashotara Sata Sri Srimati Svangdes Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem se kho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kungiri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mayapur Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Srimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Sri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Madan Mohan Ki Jai Sri Sri Gaunitai Ki Jai Sri Sri Jagannath Subhadra Baladev Ki Jai Gaura Premanandi All glories to the Samanivatis All glories to the Samanivatis All glories to the Samanivatis All glories to Sri Guru Sri Gauranga All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishu Padaya Krishna Vasavutade Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachadine Nirvesesha Sunyavari Pastyatare Vatharine Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashtaprayesha Bhatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamasloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Today, Ekadasi, we are reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita and from the second volume, 5th chapter, entitled Free to Preach. Actually, Prabhupada has no motive but to present the absolute truth as he had heard it in disciplic succession. Prabhupada is speaking to a small gathering in New York City, 1965. But if anyone in that railroad car-shaped room were to ask himself, should I surrender to a spiritual master, he would be confronted by the existential presence of a genuine guru. One is free to regard his talk as one likes. Srila Prabhupada says, in every step of one's life, the spiritual master guides. Now, to give such guidance, a spiritual master should also be a very perfect man. Sri Sri Gaur Nitai ki jai, Sri Sri Radha Madan Mohan ki jai, Sri Sri Jagannath Subhadra Baladev ki jai. Otherwise, how can he guide? Now here, Arjuna knows that Sri Krishna is a perfect person. So therefore, he is accepting him. Sishyasteham sadhi mam tvam pabannam. Srila Prabhupada is giving lecture from Bhagavad Gita, the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, explaining how Arjuna is submitting himself to Lord Krishna, accepting Krishna as his spiritual master. Sanskrit, no one knows a word of it. But there is never any question for Srila Prabhupada, even if they don't understand it. The transcendental sound of Shastra will purify them. It is his authority, and he cannot omit it. And even at first impression, it presents an air of scholarly authority, the original, though foreign, words of the sages. Prabhupada says, I am just surrendering unto you, and you accept me as your disciple. Arjuna says, friendly talks cannot make a solution to perplexity. Friendly talks may be going on for years together, but no solution. So here, Arjuna accepts Krishna as the spiritual master. This means that whatever Krishna will dictate, he has to accept. One cannot deny the order of the spiritual master. Therefore, one has to select a spiritual master by whose orders one will not commit a mistake. Suppose you accept the wrong person as spiritual master and he guides you wrongly. Then your whole life is spoiled. So one has to accept a spiritual master whose guidance will make one's life perfect. That is the relationship between spiritual master and disciple. It is not a formality. It is a great responsibility, both for the disciple and for the spiritual master. And, yes, student. But if the disciple is in ignorance before Prabhupada, yes. Prabhupada acknowledges a serious question. It is for answering questions like this from disciples in ignorance that he has left retirement in India and come to America. Student, how does he know which master to choose? Because he doesn't have the knowledge to make a wise decision. Prabhupada, yes. So the first thing is that one should be searching after a spiritual master. Just as you search after some school, you must at least have some preliminary knowledge of what a school is. You can't search for a school and go to a clothes shop. If you are so ignorant that you do not know what is a school and what is a clothes shop, then it is very difficult for you. You must know at least what a school is. So that knowledge is like this. Tad Vijnanartham Sagurum Eva Vigachet Samit Pani Sotriyam Brahmanishtam. According to this verse, the spiritual master is required for a person who is inquisitive about transcendental knowledge. There is another verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Tasmad Gurun Pravadyeta Jigdyasu Sriya Uttamam. One should search after a spiritual master if one is inquisitive about transcendental subject matters. Unless one is at least conversant with preliminary knowledge of transcendental matters, how can he inquire from the spiritual master? His questioner seems satisfied. The lecture is not to prepare speech on a specific subject. Though grave and thorough in scholarship, it ranges over several philosophical points. Yet he never pauses, groping for words. He knows exactly what he wants to say, and it is only a question of how much his audience can take. But sometimes his mood is light, and he commiserates with his fellow New Yorkers, chuckling about the difficulties they share. Prabhupada says, suppose there is a heavy snowfall. The whole New York City is flooded with snow, and you are all put into inconvenience. This is the source of suffering, but you have no control over it. Sometimes he praises Dr. Misra's students for having learned so nicely from their teacher. Now, what Dr. Misra is teaching is very nice. He is teaching that, first of all, you must know, who am I? This is very good. But that who am I can be known from Bhagavad Gita also. I am not this body. And sometimes a guest suddenly speaks out with an irrelevant question. And the Swami patiently tries to consider it. Yet behind his tolerance, Prabhupada's mood is always one of urgency. Sometimes he talks quickly, and one senses his desire to establish Krishna consciousness in the West as soon as possible. He has no followers, only a few books, no temples, and he openly states that he is racing against time. I am an old man. I could leave at any time. So behind the formal delivery of Krishna consciousness philosophy is an anxiety, an almost desperate desire to convince at least one soul to take up Krishna consciousness immediately. Now the constrained situations of Butler and the Ananda Ashram and Dr. Mishra are behind him. He is free to speak about the Absolute Truth in full. Throughout his life, he has prepared for this, yet he is still discovering the best ways to present Krishna, exploring his Western audience, testing their reactions. Prabhupada speaks. We should always remember that he is God. He is all-powerful. In strength, no one could conquer him. In beauty, as far as beauty is concerned, when he was on the battlefield, have any one of you seen a picture of Krishna? Have you seen? Have any of you ever seen Krishna? Or no? Prabhupada's voice fades as he pauses, looking out at his audience. No one has ever seen Krishna. None of them have the slightest previous knowledge of Lord Krishna. In India, hundreds of millions worship Lord Krishna daily as the eternal form of all beauty and truth, and view his graceful form in sculpture, painting, and dance. His philosophical teachings in Bhagavad Gita are all famous, and Prabhupada is his intimate emissary. Yet, the ladies and gentlemen in room 307 look back at the Swami blankly. Prabhupada is discussing the real meaning of going to a sacred place in India. Quote from Prabhupada, "One should go to a sacred place in order to find some intelligent scholar in spiritual knowledge, living there, and make association with him. Just like my residence is at Vrindavan. So at Vrindavan, there are many big scholars and saintly persons living. So one should go to such holy places, not simply to take baths in the water. One must be intelligent enough to find some spiritually advanced man living there and take instruction from him and be benefited by that. If a man has attachment for going to a place of pilgrimage to take a bath, but has no attraction for hearing from learned people there, he is considered to be an ass." He laughed. Saiva go karaha. Go means cow and kara means ass. So the whole civilization is moving like a civilization of cows and asses. Everyone is identifying with the body. Yes, you want to speak? Woman, in the places known as sacred places, Prabhupada, sacred, yes. Woman, is it sacred places? Prabhupada, yes. Woman, isn't it also a fact that there is more magnetism because of the meeting of saints and more advanced people? Prabhupada, oh yes, certainly, certainly. Therefore the place itself has got some magnetism. Woman, yes, and when? Prabhupada, just like at Vrindavan, that is practical. Here I am now sitting in New York, the world's greatest city, such a magnificent city, but my heart is always hankering after that Vrindavan. Woman, yes, loves. Prabhupada, yes, I am not happy here. Woman, yes, I know. Prabhupada, I shall be very happy to return to my Vrindavan, that sacred place. But then, why are you here now? Because it is my duty. I have brought some message for you people, because I have been ordered by my superior, my spiritual master. Whatever you have learned, you should go to the Western countries, and you must distribute this knowledge. So in spite of all my difficulties, all my inconveniences, I am here, because I am obligated by duty. If I go and sit down in Vrindavan, that will be good for my personal conveniences. I shall be very comfortable there. and I will have no anxiety, nothing of the sort. But I have taken all the risk in this old age because I am duty bound. I am duty bound, so I have to execute my duty despite all my inconveniences. End of quote. An outsider opens the door and hesitantly glances inside. Prabhupada, stopping his lecture, yes, yes, come in. You can come here. Robert Nelson was like a slow, simple country boy with a homespun manner, even though he had grown up in New York City. He was 20 years old. He was not part of the growing hippie movement. He didn't take marijuana or other drugs, and he did not socialize much. He was a loner. He had gotten some technical education at Staten Island Community College and had tried his hand at the record manufacturing business, but without much success. He was interested in God and would attend various spiritual meetings around the city. So one night, he wandered into the Yoga Society to hear Dr. Mishra's lecture, and there he saw Prabhupada for the first time. Robert says, Swami was sitting cross-legged on a bench. There was a meeting, and Dr. Mishra was standing up before a group of people. There were about 50 people coming there, and he talked on, I am consciousness. Dr. Mishra talked and then gave Swami a grand introduction with a big smile. Swamiji is here, he said. And he swings around and waves his hand for a big introduction. It was beautiful. This was after Dr. Mishra spoke for about an hour. The Swami did not speak. He sang a song. Afterwards, he went up to him. He had a big smile, and he said that he likes young people to take to Krishna consciousness. He was very serious about it. He wanted all young people. So I thought that was very nice. It made sense. So I wanted to help. We stood there talking for about an hour. Mishra had a library in the back, and we looked at certain books, Arjuna, Krishna, chariots, and things. And then we walked around. We looked at some of the pictures of Swamis on the wall. By that time, it was getting very late, and Prabhupada said, come back the next day at 10 to his office downstairs. End of quote. The next day, when Robert Nelson went to room 307, Prabhupada invited him in. The room was clearly not intended to serve as a living quarters. There was no toilet, shower, chair, bed, or telephone. The walls were painted a dark, dismal color. Prabhupada showed Robert the 3-volume set of Srimad Bhagavatam, which Robert purchased for $16.50. Then Prabhupada handed him a small piece of paper with the Hare Krishna mantra printed on it. Robert says, while Swamiji was handing it to me, he had this big smile on his face, like he was handing me the world. We spent the whole day together. At one point he said, we are going to take a sleep. So he lay down there by his little desk, and so I said, I am tired too. So I lay down at the other end of the room, and we rested. I just lay on the floor. It was the only place to do it. But he did not rest that long, an hour and a half, I think, to do it. An hour and a half, I think. And we spent the rest of the day together. He was talking about Lord Chaitanya and the Lord's pastimes, and he showed me a small picture of Lord Chaitanya. Then he started talking about the devotees of Lord Chaitanya, Nityananda and Advaita. He had a picture of the 5 of them and a picture of his spiritual master. He said some things in Sanskrit, and then he translated. It wasn't much of a room, though. You'd really be disappointed if you saw it. End of quote. Robert Nelson couldn't give Prabhupada the kind of assistance he needed. Lord Chaitanya states that a person has at his command 4 assets: his life, money, intelligence, and words, at least one of which he should give to the service of God. Robert Nelson didn't seem able to give his whole life to Krishna consciousness. And as for money, he had very little. His intelligence was also limited, and he spoke unimpressively, nor did he have a wide range of friends or contacts among whom to speak. But he was affectionate towards the Swami, and out of the 8 million people in the city, he was practically the only one who showed a personal interest in him and offered to help. From his experience in the record business, Mr. Robert, as Swamiji called him, developed a scheme to produce a record of Swamiji's singing. People were always putting out albums with almost anything on them, he explained, and they would always make money, or at least break even. So it would be almost impossible to lose money. It was a way he thought he could help make the Swami known, and he tried to convince Prabhupada of the idea. And Prabhupada did not discourage Mr. Robert, who seemed eager to render this service. Robert says, "Me and the Swami went around to this record company on 46th Street. We went there, and I started talking, and the man was all business. He was all business, and mean, they go together. So we went in there with a tape, and we tried talking to the man. Swamiji was talking, but the man said he could not put the tape out. I think he listened to the tape, but he would not put it out. So we felt discouraged, but he did not say much about it." End of quote. Prabhupada had been in business in India, and he was not about to think that he could suddenly take up business in a foreign country on the advice of a young boy in New York City. Besides, he had come not to do business, but to preach. Robert, however, was enthusiastically offering service. Perhaps he would not become a regular brahmachari student, but he had a desire to serve Krishna. For Prabhupada, to refuse him would be perhaps to turn away an interested Western young person. Prabhupada had come to speak about Krishna, to present the chanting, and if Mr. Robert wanted to help by arranging for an American record album, then that was welcome. Mr. Robert and the Swami made an odd combination. Prabhupada was elderly and dignified, a deep scholar of the Bhagavatam and the Sanskrit language, whereas Robert Nelson was artless, even in Western culture, and inept in worldly ways. Together they would walk, the Swami wearing his winter coat with its imitation fur collar, his Indian dhoti, and white-pointed shoes. Mr. Robert wearing old khaki pants and an old coat. Prabhupada walked with rapid, determined strides, outpacing the lumbering, rambling, heavy-set boy who had befriended him. Mr. Robert was supposed to help Prabhupada in making presentations to businessmen and real estate men, yet he himself was hardly a slick fellow. He was innocent. Robert says, once we went over to this big office building on 42nd Street, and we went in there. The rent was thousands of dollars for a whole floor. So I was standing there talking to the man, but I did not understand how all this money would come. The Swami wanted a big place, and I did not know what to tell the man. End of quote. Prabhupada wanted a big place, and a big place meant a big price. He had no money, and Robert Nelson had only his unemployment checks. Still, Prabhupada was interested, and if he were to find a building, that would be a great step in his mission. And this was also another way of engaging Mr. Robert. Besides, Krishna might do anything, give anything, or work in any way, ordinary or miraculous. So Prabhupada has his reasoning, and Mr. Robert had his. Robert says, the building was between 6th and Broadway on 42nd Street, some place to open Krishna's temple. We went in and up to the second floor and saw the renting agent, and then we left. I think it was $5,000 a month or $10,000 a month. We got to a certain point, and the money was too much. And then we left. When he brought up the prices, I figured we had better not. We had to stop. End of quote. On another occasion, Robert Nelson took Prabhupada by bus to the Hotel Columbia at 70 West 46th Street. The hotel had a suite that Prabhupada looked at for possible use as a temple. But again, it was very expensive, and there was no money. Sometimes Robert would make purchases for Prabhupada with the money from his unemployment checks. Once he bought orange-colored T-shirts. Once he went to Woolworth and bought kitchen pots and pans and some picture frames for Prabhupada's pictures of Lord Chaitanya and his spiritual master. Robert says, one time I wanted to know how to make chapati cakes. So Swami says, $100 please for the recipe. $100 please. So I went and got some money, but I couldn't get $100. But he showed me anyway. He taught me to cook and would always repeat, wash hands, and you should only eat with your right hand. And whoever met the Swami was almost always impressed. They would start smiling back to him, and sometimes they would say funny things to each other that were nice. The Swami's English was very technical, always. I mean, he had a big vocabulary, but sometimes people had a little trouble understanding him, and you had to help sometimes. End of quote. The Paradox at 64 East 7th Street on the Lower East Side was a restaurant dedicated to the philosophy of George Osawa and a macrobiotic diet. It was a storefront below street level with small dining tables placed around the candlelit room. The food was inexpensive and well reputed. Tea was served free, as much as you like. More than just a restaurant, the Paradox was a center for spiritual and cultural interests, a meeting place reminiscent of the cafes of Greenwich Village or Paris in the 1920s. A person could spend the whole day at the Paradox without buying anything, and no one would complain. The crowd at the Paradox was a mystical congregation interested in teachings from the East. When news of the new Swami uptown at Dr. Mishra's reached the Paradox, The word spread quickly. Harvey Cohen and Bill Epstein were friends. Harvey was a freelance artist, and Bill worked at the Paradox. After Harvey had been to Prabhupada's place at Dr. Mishra's yoga studio a few times, he came by the Paradox and began to describe all about the new Swami to Bill and other friends. Bill says, I was working at the Paradox one night when Harvey came to me and said, I went to visit Mishra and there's a new Swami there and he's really fantastic. Well, I was involved in macrobiotics and Buddhism, so at first I couldn't care less. But Harvey was a winning and warm personality, and he seemed interested in this. He said, why don't you come uptown? I would like you to see this. So I went to one of the lectures on 72nd Street. I walked in there, and I could feel a certain presence from the Swami. He had a certain very concentrated, intense appearance. He looked pale and kind of weak. I guess he had just come here and he had been through a lot of things. He was sitting there chanting on his beads, which he carried in a little bead bag. One of Dr. Mishra's students was talking, and he finally got around to introducing the Swami. He said, we are the moons to the Swami's sun. He introduced him in that way. The Swami got up and talked. I didn't know what to think about it. At that time, the only steps I had taken in regard to Indian teaching were through Ramakrishna. But this was the first time, to my knowledge, that Bhakti religion had come to America. End of quote. So we can end this reading here. Any questions or comments on this reading? All right. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita ki jai.